My brother stood up at Christmas dinner, crystal wine glass in hand, that smirk I'd known for 36 years spreading across his face. The Waterford crystal caught the light from Mom's chandelier, the one she'd bought with money that, I would soon learn, was actually mine. "Before we eat," he announced to 70 relatives packed into my parents' dining room, "let's address the elephant in the room. Stephen here is homeless." The word hung in the air like a poison. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died. 70 faces turned to stare at me, sitting at the far end of the table where Mom had strategically placed me, with the children, despite being 36 years old. Nothing but a nobody who bankrupted his company and now lives in his car. Marcus was warming to his theme, playing to his audience like a performer who'd rehearsed this moment. Our former golden boy, the one who was supposed to be the family success story, reduced to showering at the gym and eating dollar menu meals. He raised his glass higher. To family success, and to failures who remind us what not to become. Everyone laughed. Not polite, uncomfortable laughter, but genuine, cruel amusement. My parents smiled, waiting for my humiliation to be complete. Mom actually dabbed at her eyes like she was crying, but I could see the satisfaction underneath, the pleasure of watching her biological son destroy the one who wasn't. Not that I knew that yet. "Tell them about the storage unit, Stephen," Marcus continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "The one you couldn't afford to keep. How they auctioned off everything you owned. Your diplomas, your awards, that painting grandmother left you." "She left it to both of us," I said quietly. "No," Marcus corrected, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She left it to family. You just assumed you were included." More laughter. My cousin Patricia's daughter was recording on her phone, probably already uploading to TikTok. "When family dinners go wrong," or some similar title that would get millions of views. I didn't yell. I didn't defend myself. I checked my watch and smiled back. In exactly 30 minutes, the investigator I'd hired 6 months ago would arrive with documents that would destroy their golden child forever. 29 minutes and 45 seconds, to be precise. I should have seen it coming. The setup was too perfect. Marcus getting everyone's attention. The extended family all present for the first time in 5 years. The way my parents had insisted I attend despite making it clear all year that I was a disappointment. They'd orchestrated this public execution, planned my final humiliation. The invitation had come 3 weeks ago, formal and cold. "Your presence is requested at the Morrison family Christmas dinner. Formal attire expected." Mom had added a handwritten note. "Do try to look presentable, Stephen. And please don't mention your situation." My situation. That's what they called the systematic destruction of my life that Marcus had orchestrated. The dining room in my parents' Westchester mansion could hold 100 people comfortably, but they'd packed in 70 for Christmas dinner, every aunt and uncle and cousin who'd whispered about my failures for the past year. The table stretched the length of the room, covered in Mom's heirloom china, the stuff she only brought out when she wanted to impress. I sat at the far end, the kids' table section, despite being 36 years old. Marcus, 2 years younger but infinitely more successful in their eyes, sat at Dad's right hand like a crown prince. My name is Stephen Chin Morrison. The Chun was from my mother's side, supposedly, a detail that would matter more than anyone knew. I'd been a financial advisor, a good one, until my business partner disappeared with $2 million and left me holding worthless contracts and angry clients. The bankruptcy wasn't my fault, but try explaining that to parents who measure worth in net worth. The truth was more complex than even I knew at the time. I'd built Morrison Financial Advisory from nothing, starting with a desk in a shared workspace and cold calling potential clients. Within 5 years, we were managing $300 million in assets. I'd brought on James Fitzgerald as a partner when the growth became too much for one person to handle. He had the connections, I had the expertise. It seemed perfect. What I didn't know was that James was Marcus's college roommate. What I didn't know was that they'd been planning my destruction for 3 years, ever since I'd refused to hire Marcus at my firm. "He's not qualified," I told my parents. "An MBA doesn't make you a financial advisor." That rejection had festered in Marcus like a tumor. He couldn't accept that his older brother, the one who wasn't even supposed to be successful, had built something he couldn't have. So he decided to take it. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. James gained my trust over 2 years, learned our systems, gained signing authority on accounts. Then, one Tuesday in March, he vanished, along with $2 million in client funds that mysteriously appeared to have my signature on the transfer orders. The FBI investigation found my digital fingerprints all over the theft, planted by Marcus using backdoor access he'd installed during a friendly visit to my office to help with IT issues. Actually, Marcus continued, warming to his theme, Stephen, why don't you tell everyone about living in your Tesla? Oh wait, you had to sell that too, didn't you? What is it now? A 2003 Honda. 2004, I corrected quietly. A 2004 Honda Civic with 200,000 miles and a broken air conditioner, Marcus elaborated, pulling out his phone. I actually hired a private investigator to look into our family failure here. Want to see what he found? He connected his phone to Mom's smart TV, the 85-inch OLED she'd bought last month while I was selling plasma to afford food. The screen lit up with documents, photos, reports. Stephen Chun Morrison, age 36, filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy 8 months ago. Assets liquidated include 1 Tesla Model S, 1 Rolex Submariner, a college graduation gift from Grandma, if you remember, his entire investment portfolio, and even his engagement ring from when Rebecca left him. You don't need to do this, Rebecca's sister Sarah said from across the table. She'd remained friends with me despite the breakup. Oh, but I do, Marcus said. Everyone needs to understand what failure looks like. Look at this. He swiped to a new photo. Security footage from a grocery store. Me counting change to buy a loaf of bread and peanut butter. The timestamp showed 2 a.m. This is what Stephen does now. Shops at 2 a.m. to avoid being seen. Pays in quarters and dimes. My Aunt Patricia, Mom's sister who'd never liked me, actually applauded. Finally someone says what we're all thinking. He's been a drain on this family for years. A drain? I asked, finally speaking up. I've loaned this family over $500,000 over the past decade. Loaned? Dad laughed, the sound bitter and dismissive. You mean invested in your family? And what kind of investor demands repayment from family? The kind who's now homeless because that family never paid him back, I said. Stop playing the victim, Mom interjected, her voice sharp as winter. You made bad business decisions. You trusted the wrong person. That's not our fault. Actually, I said, checking my watch, 22 minutes. It is. Marcus ignored me, swiping to the next slide. Evicted from his apartment 6 months ago. Currently no fixed address. Has applied for 43 jobs. Rejected from all of them. He paused dramatically, including McDonald's. They literally wouldn't hire him to flip burgers. That was a lie, but it got the biggest laugh yet. My cousin Derek, a corporate lawyer who'd always competed with me, was recording everything on his phone, narrating for his Instagram followers. This is what happens when you think you're better than everyone else, he said to his camera. My cousin thought he was hot shit with his financial firm. Now look at him. The investigator found more, Marcus said, his voice dripping with fake concern. Did you know Stephen's been selling his belongings on eBay? His college ring went for $30. His law degree, oh wait, he doesn't have one. Just that pathetic finance degree from a state school. I went to Northwestern, I said. On scholarship, Marcus clarified. Because the family couldn't afford to pay for 2 kids in college, and I was at Harvard. You were at Harvard because I tutored you through high school to get your grades up, I reminded him. Ancient history, Marcus waved dismissively. Let's focus on the present. The present where you beg strangers to buy your possessions. Look at this listing. Gently used men's suits, size 40R, perfect for job interviews. How pathetic is that? Selling the very clothes you need to get a job. 20 minutes. The investigator found more, Marcus said, his voice dripping with fake concern. Did you know Stephen's been selling his belongings on eBay? His college ring, his watch collection, even his law degree. That's how desperate he's become. My mother, Linda Morrison, dabbed at her eyes with her napkin, but I could see the satisfaction underneath the performance. We tried to help him, she told the room. But some people are just born failures. My father, Robert Morrison, nodded gravely. It's genetic, probably. Weak character. Nothing like Marcus here. He clapped my brother's shoulder. Now there's a Morrison man. VP at Goldman Sachs, beautiful wife, 2 perfect kids. Marcus's wife, Jennifer, preened at the compliment. Their twin boys, sitting near me at the kids section, looked uncomfortable. The 8-year-olds had always liked their Uncle Stephen, back when I could afford to give them gifts. You know what the saddest part is? Marcus asked the room. He actually asked me for a loan last month. Me, his younger brother. Can you imagine the shamelessness? I had asked for a loan. $5,000 to pay for the private investigator whose report was currently 25 minutes away. Marcus had laughed in my face, then called our parents to report my begging. The real issue, my father said, standing now too, joining his golden son in my public execution, is that Stephen never had the Morrison strength. I built my dental empire from nothing. Marcus conquered Wall Street, but Stephen, he couldn't even keep a simple financial advisory firm running. It wasn't simple, I said quietly. We managed over $300 million in assets. And lost it all, Marcus shot back. Because you trusted the wrong person. A Morrison would never be so naive. 22 minutes. My cousin Derek, a corporate lawyer who'd always competed with me, joined the pylon. I heard he applied to McDonald's last week. They turned him down too. This was a lie, but it got the biggest laugh yet. My grandmother, 93 and supposedly suffering from dementia, watched from her wheelchair with surprisingly clear eyes. She was the only one not laughing. Should we even let him eat? Marcus asked theatrically. I mean, he can't contribute to the meal. Mom, how much did the spread cost? About $3,000, Mom said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The wine alone was $500 a bottle. And Stephen brought, what? Nothing? As usual? I had actually brought something. A manila envelope hidden in my coat in the hallway. But that was for later. 19 minutes now. Marcus moved closer to me, playing to his audience. You know, there's a homeless shelter about 10 miles from here. I looked it up for you. They serve Christmas dinner to people like you. People who are nothing. Nobody. Failed nothings who. Marcus. Grandma's voice cut through the room. First time she'd spoken all evening. Everyone turned to look at her. What, Grandma? Marcus asked, his tone switching to sweet grandson mode. Sit down, she said simply. But Grandma, I'm just... Sit down. Something in her tone made him obey. But the damage was done. 70 relatives had witnessed my complete humiliation. Mom was actually smiling now, not bothering to hide it. This had been planned, orchestrated, designed to finally drive me away from the family forever. 15 minutes. Before we continue, Dad said, I want to make something clear. After tonight, Stephen is no longer welcome at family gatherings. We can't have his failure contaminating Marcus's children. Here, Uncle Thomas called out, raising his wine glass. Others joined the toast. To my exile. To my erasure from the Morrison family. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Mom asked me, fake sympathy dripping from every word. Any explanation for how you've embarrassed this family? I stood up slowly. The room quieted, expecting me to break down, to beg, to humiliate myself further. Yes, I said calmly. I have something to say. Marcus, you mentioned you hired a private investigator to look into me. That's interesting, because I hired one too. Marcus laughed. With what money? The money I got from selling my watch collection, I said. $5,000. But my investigator wasn't looking into me. He was looking into you. The laughter stopped. Marcus's face changed slightly, but he recovered quickly. Pathetic. Making up stories now. Not stories. Facts. Like the fact that you were the anonymous investor who convinced my business partner to run with the money. You gave him the offshore account information. You helped him disappear. That's insane. I have the emails, the wire transfers, the security footage of you meeting with him the night before he vanished. 10 minutes. The room was silent now. Marcus's face had gone from smug to something else. Not quite fear yet, but getting there. But that's not the most interesting thing my investigator found, I continued. He found something about our family, about bloodlines, about who's really a Morrison and who isn't. My father stood up. That's enough. Get out. In 10 minutes, I said. Give me 10 minutes, and then I'll leave forever if you want. Stephen, my mother's voice was ice. You're embarrassing yourself even more. Am I? Marcus, tell everyone about Singapore. Marcus went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Summer 1987. Dad was at a dental conference in Singapore for 3 weeks. Mom was supposed to go but canceled last minute. Remember, Mom? Morning sickness, you said later. My mother's face had changed now too. Stop this. Marcus was born in March 1988. Count backward 9 months. June 1987. When Dad was in Singapore. This is ridiculous, Dad shouted, but I noticed he was looking at Mom. Not me. My investigator is very thorough, I said. He found the hotel records. Dad, you were definitely in Singapore. Mom, you were definitely here. With someone else. 5 minutes. Who was it, Mom? I asked. Who's Marcus's real father? The room had gone completely silent. Marcus stood frozen, his mouth open. Jennifer had pulled their twins closer to her. You're lying, Marcus whispered. The investigator will be here in 5 minutes with DNA test results, I said. We'll know for sure then. DNA test? Dad's voice was strange, hollow. How did you get DNA? Wine glass from last Thanksgiving, I said, looking at Marcus. You left it at my apartment when you came to gloat about my business failing. And Dad's toothbrush from when you both stayed at my place 2 years ago. This is illegal, Mom shrieked. Actually, it's not. Abandoned property. My lawyer checked. 3 minutes. Marcus had sat down hard in his chair. This isn't possible. I'm a Morrison. I'm the golden child. You're the product of an affair, I said. And everyone's about to know it. The doorbell rang. That's him, I said, standing slowly. Nobody moved for a moment. The entire room seemed frozen. 70 people holding their breath. Then Grandma, of all people, said in her clear, strong voice that betrayed no hint of the dementia they claimed she had, someone should answer that. I walked to the door, every eye following me. Through the frosted glass, I could see the investigator's silhouette, tall, professional, carrying a briefcase that contained 36 years of lies. William Patterson, former FBI, now private investigator, the best money could buy. Money I'd gotten from selling everything I owned, including the watch my biological grandfather had left me. Not that I knew he was my biological grandfather at the time. Mr. Morrison, Patterson said formally as I opened the door. I have the documents you requested. As we discussed, the findings are extensive. Thank you. Please, come in. We walked back to the dining room together. The silence was absolute. Even the children had stopped fidgeting. Patterson was an imposing figure, 6'4", built like a linebacker, with eyes that had seen too much in his 20 years with the Bureau. He commanded attention just by existing. Should I? Patterson asked, gesturing to his briefcase. Please, I said. Start with the DNA results. He opened the briefcase with theatrical precision. Inside were folders color-coded and labeled. Red for blood, blue for money, black for crimes. DNA analysis comparing Marcus Morrison to Robert Morrison, he began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd testified in hundreds of trials. Samples obtained from Marcus Morrison's wine glass, November 27th, and Robert Morrison's toothbrush, provided by the client. He paused, looked directly at Marcus. Probability of paternity, 0%. They are not biologically related. The sound Mom made was inhuman, part gasp, part scream, part whimper. Dad stood there like a statue, his face draining of color until he looked gray. That's impossible, Marcus whispered. I'm a Morrison. I'm the golden child. You're the product of an affair, Patterson said matter-of-factly. Would you like me to continue with the biological father's identity? Or should we move to the financial crimes first? Financial crimes? Dad's voice cracked. Additionally, Patterson continued, pulling out a blue folder, financial forensic analysis shows that Marcus Morrison has embezzled approximately $2.3 million from Morrison Dental Enterprises over the past 5 years. What? Dad stumbled backward, caught by Uncle Thomas, who was standing behind him. The expansion fund that Mr. Morrison Sr. believed was being used to open satellite offices? That money went directly to Marcus Morrison's personal accounts in the Cayman Islands. The supposed new office in White Plains? It doesn't exist. The one in Scarsdale? A mailbox in a UPS store. Patterson pulled out more documents, spreading them on Mom's precious mahogany table like tarot cards revealing the future. The money that Stephen Morrison's business lost? Traced through a series of shell companies back to accounts controlled by Marcus Morrison. He paid James Fitzgerald, Stephen's partner, $500,000 to disappear with client funds. The plan was to destroy Stephen's reputation so thoroughly that no one would ever believe him if he discovered the embezzlement from the family business. You destroyed me, I said to Marcus, my voice steady despite the rage building inside. You took everything from me. My business, my reputation, my fiancé, my home. Why? Marcus had gone pale, his golden boy tan looking sickly under the chandelier lights. You don't understand. Make me understand, I said. Make everyone understand why you needed to destroy your own brother. You're not my brother, Marcus screamed, jumping to his feet. Mom told me when I was 16, you're not Dad's son. You're nobody's son. Some random sperm donor baby she had before I was born. The room exploded in gasps and murmurs. I felt the words hit me like physical blows, but I kept standing. Is that true? I asked Mom directly. She was crying now, real tears this time. It's not. It's complicated. Then let me uncomplicate it, Patterson said, pulling out a red folder. Linda Morrison has been having an affair for 34 years with Thomas Chun. Uncle Thomas, Mom's sister Patricia's husband, dropped his wine glass. It shattered on the floor, red wine spreading like blood across Mom's white carpet. Aunt Patricia screamed, launching herself at Mom with her manicured nails extended like claws. You bitch! My husband? My husband! It took 3 male cousins to pull them apart. Mom's perfect hair was destroyed, her dress torn. Patricia had scratch marks down both cheeks. Thomas Chun is Marcus Morrison's biological father. He is also, the investigator paused, looked at me, also Stephen's biological father. The room exploded. I stood there stunned. This wasn't what I'd expected. What? I managed. Your blood type, Stephen, is AB negative. Robert Morrison is O positive. Linda Morrison is A positive. It's genetically impossible for them to have an AB negative child. You and Marcus are full brothers, both sons of Linda Morrison and Thomas Chun. I looked at the man I'd called Dad for 36 years. He was staring at Mom like he'd never seen her before. 36 years, he whispered. Neither of them are mine? The investigator found records, I said, my voice hollow. Mom and Thomas have been together since college. They never stopped. You were just the one with money, the one worth marrying. Aunt Patricia had started attacking Mom, physically attacking her. Other relatives had to pull them apart. Both my sons, Thomas said, looking at Marcus's empty chair, then at me. Both of you. You knew. I asked him. I suspected. You both have my mother's eyes. But Linda said it was impossible. Grandma rolled her wheelchair forward. I knew, she said clearly. I've always known. Morrison men have a genetic marker, attached earlobes. Robert has them. His father had them. Marcus's are unattached. So are Stephen's. You knew and never said anything? Dad Robert asked her. You were happy with your golden child, she said. Even when he was stealing from you. Even when he destroyed Stephen to hide it. You chose blindness. Well, now you see. The investigator pulled out more papers. Mr. Stephen Morrison, or rather Mr. Stephen Chen, your biological grandparents, the Chun family, set up a trust fund for you that your mother has been hiding. It's worth approximately $4 million. $4 million. I stared at the papers. Your biological grandfather owned several restaurants. He left everything to his grandson Stephen, but Linda Morrison has been collecting the dividends while keeping you from the principal. I looked at Mom, at Linda. She was sobbing now, but not from shame, from being caught. You let me go bankrupt, live in my car, beg for loans, while sitting on $4 million that belonged to me. It was for the family, she managed. For Marcus's education, his wedding, for your affair partner's other son. Not even your husband's child. Robert Morrison stood up slowly, like an old man. I want a divorce. I want everyone out of my house. Except Stephen. Stephen's not your son either, Linda wailed. No, Robert said. But he's the only one who wasn't trying to destroy me. Get out. All of you. Now. The exodus was chaotic. Relatives fleeing. Gossip already spreading. Phones recording everything. Thomas tried to approach me, but I walked away. He wasn't my father. He was just the man who'd helped create me during an affair. Within an hour, only Robert, Grandma, and I remained in the mansion. The Christmas dinner sat untouched on the table, $3,000 of food growing cold. I'm sorry, I told Robert. I didn't know it would go this far. Don't apologize, he said. You revealed the truth. Marcus was stealing from me. Linda was cheating for 36 years. You were the only honest one. But I'm not your son. He looked at me for a long moment. Biology doesn't make a father. I raised you. I watched you succeed, then watched them destroy you out of jealousy. Marcus might have been my favorite, but that was my failing, not yours. You're more my son than he ever was. Grandma wheeled over to me. The Chun Trust Fund, I have the original documents. I've been keeping them safe, waiting for the right moment. Your grandfather Chun was a good man. He'd be proud of you. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought it was dementia talking? No, you needed to discover it yourself. And you needed them to destroy you first, so you'd be strong enough to destroy them back. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Texting from wherever he'd run to. You ruined everything. I texted back. No. I revealed everything. There's a difference. Then Linda. You're no son of mine. I replied. I never was. You made that clear every day for 36 years. Thomas, can we talk? I didn't reply to that one. What was there to say to a man who'd fathered 2 sons with his sister-in-law and let another man raise them? Robert opened a bottle of wine, the good stuff, the $500 bottle Marcus had been bragging about. He poured 3 glasses. To truth, he said, raising his glass. To consequences, Grandma added. To starting over, I said. We drank in the ruins of Christmas dinner, surrounded by empty chairs and shattered illusions. The investigator had left more documents. Marcus's embezzlement was extensive and provable. He'd been taking money since his first day at Goldman Sachs, using his position to manipulate Dad's accounts. The $2 million he'd stolen from me through my business partner was just the latest theft. Will you press charges? I asked Robert. Yes, against both of them. Marcus for theft, Linda for fraud. She's been taking money from the practice for her affair for decades. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. He laughed bitterly. I'm 67 years old. I've wasted 36 years on a woman who never loved me and a son who wasn't mine. But at least I have 20 good years left to live honestly. My phone rang. The investigator. Mr. Morrison, there's something else. Can you check your email? I opened it. There were more documents, birth records, adoption papers, court files. What is this? Your biological grandfather Chin didn't just leave you money. He left you his entire estate. The restaurants, the real estate, everything. Your mother has been hiding it all, collecting rent and profits for 36 years. I stared at the numbers. It wasn't 4 million. It was closer to 40 million. $40 million? Robert looked at the screen. Jesus Christ. She let you go homeless while sitting on 40 million that belonged to you. The restaurants alone generate 2 million a year in profit, the investigator said. You're technically one of the wealthiest men in New York. You just didn't know it. I sat down hard. The man who'd been mocked for being homeless, called a nobody, humiliated for bankruptcy. I'd been a millionaire the entire time. There's more, the investigator said. Thomas Chen? He's not just your biological father. He's been using his access to your mother to steal from the Chen estate too. He knew about the inheritance and has been siphoning funds with Linda's help. So the affair was about money? Partially. But also, Thomas Chen can't have children. He's been sterile since a childhood illness. Both you and Marcus were conceived through IVF using donor sperm. Neither of you are biologically his. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The absurdity was too much. So who's our biological father? Donor 447B from Manhattan Cryobank. I'm still tracing that. This is insane. Your life has been a lie, Mr. Morrison. But now you know the truth. And you have the resources to start over. After I hung up, Grandma smiled. I knew about the donor too. Linda confessed when she was drunk once. She thought I'd forget, dementia, you know. But I remember everything. Why did they hate me so much if we're both donor babies? Because Marcus looked like Thomas enough to pass. You didn't. You looked like the Chun grandfather Linda was stealing from. Every time they saw you, they saw their crime looking back. Robert stood up. I'm going to bed. Stephen, you can stay here as long as you want. This is still your home. Thank you, Dad. He stopped, turned back. I may not be your biological father, but you just proved you're my son in every way that matters. After he left, Grandma and I sat in the wreckage of dinner. What will you do now? She asked. First, I'm going to reclaim everything that's mine. Then I'm going to make sure Marcus pays for what he did to me and to Dad. Then, I don't know, start living, maybe? Good boy. And Stephen, that homeless shelter Marcus mentioned? You should go there tomorrow. Why? Because you have $40 million and they need funding. Turn your humiliation into their hope. I did go to the shelter. I donated $1 million and served Christmas dinner to people who really were homeless, who really had nothing. I thought about how close I'd come to being them, how Marcus and Linda's cruelty had nearly broken me completely. The news spread fast. By December 26th, it was on social media everywhere. Golden child exposed as a fair baby and thief at Christmas dinner. Marcus was arrested December 27th at JFK Airport, trying to flee to Switzerland. The FBI had been watching him since my investigator submitted the evidence. Linda was arrested December 28th, charged with fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. She'd been stealing from 3 sources: Robert's practice, my Chun inheritance, and Thomas's family business. Thomas disappeared. His wife Patricia filed for divorce and took everything. Their children discovered they had 2 half-brothers they'd grown up calling cousins. The family was destroyed, but maybe that was for the best. It had been built on lies. I took possession of my grandfather Chen's estate on January 2nd. The main restaurant, Chen's Palace, was a New York institution I'd eaten at dozens of times, never knowing I owned it. The staff was shocked to discover the absent owner they'd been sending profits to was the homeless nobody from the viral video. The first time I walked in as owner, not customer, the entire restaurant stopped. Waiters I'd known for years, who'd served me countless times, stood frozen. The manager, Mr. Liu, who'd been running the place for 20 years, approached me slowly. Mr. Stephen? He asked, using the name the staff had always called me. You are the grandson? I am. He bowed deeply, then called out in Mandarin. The entire staff, 43 people, lined up in the main dining room. One by one, they introduced themselves, told me how long they'd worked there, shared memories of my grandfather. He spoke of you every day, Mr. Liu said. Every morning, he would look at that reserved table and say, "Perhaps today Stephen will come. We have maintained it for 36 years. He led me to the table. Table 1, the best spot in the house, overlooking the garden courtyard. There was a permanent reservation placard, reserved for Stephen Chun. The chair had been pulled out slightly, as if waiting for someone to sit down. Your grandfather's last words, Mr. Liu said, tears in his eyes, were, "Tell Stephen the first waited. We didn't know how to find you. Your mother, Linda Morrison. She said you didn't want anything to do with the restaurant. She lied. We know that now. We've all seen the video, read the news. We're sorry we didn't try harder to find you. You preserved his legacy for 36 years. I said, "That's more than trying. That's succeeding." Over the next weeks, I learned the true scope of what I'd inherited. It wasn't just restaurants, it was an empire. 23 restaurants across New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. A food distribution company. 3 commercial buildings in Manhattan. An import business bringing specialty ingredients from China. And most surprisingly, a culinary school my grandfather had founded to train underprivileged kids. The Morrison Culinary Institute. I read from the sign, confused. Your mother insisted on naming rights, the director explained. She said it was a condition of allowing your grandfather to see photos of you. He agreed, though it broke his heart. Change it, I said immediately. The Anthony Chun Culinary Institute, and expand the scholarship program. Full rides for any foster kid or homeless youth who wants to learn. The forensic accountants Patterson had recommended were thorough. They traced every penny Linda had stolen, every dividend she'd diverted, every rent check she'd cashed. The total was staggering, $43 million over 36 years. But more interesting was what they found in Marcus's accounts. He hadn't just stolen from Dad's dental practice. He'd been running an entire shadow operation, using his Goldman Sachs position to insider trade based on information from Dad's wealthy patients. The FBI added securities fraud to his charges. The trial was set for September. I would have to testify. So would Patterson, the accountants, and surprisingly, Grandma, who'd kept records of everything. I'm 95, she told the prosecutor. I've been waiting 70 years to tell the truth about this family. Don't you dare plea bargain this down. Marcus was denied bail. The embezzlement was too extensive, the flight risk too high. He sent me a letter from Rikers Island. Stephen, I destroyed your life because I was jealous. Even knowing you weren't Dad's biological son, he still loved you more. You earned everything. I stole everything. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Some apologies come too late. Linda wrote too. You ruined our family. I did reply to that. There was no family, just conspirators pretending. Robert and I grew closer. He'd lost a wife and son but gained clarity. We had dinner every Sunday, just us and Grandma. He helped me understand the restaurant business. I helped him rebuild his practice after the scandal. The first Sunday after everything came out, Robert looked broken. He sat in his study, surrounded by family photos he was systematically removing from frames. 36 years of lies, he said, holding his wedding photo. I thought Marcus looked like me. Everyone said he had my nose, my walk. I was so proud. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be. You're the only one who never lied to me. Even when you thought I was your biological father, you never pretended things were okay. You called out the favoritism, the unfairness. I just didn't want to hear it. He pulled out a box from his desk. These are yours. Inside were documents, photos, report cards, all mine from kindergarten through college. I kept everything, he said, even when Linda wanted to throw them away. Your first grade art project, your high school valedictorian speech, your college acceptance letters. I was proud of you, Stephen. I let her convince me that showing it would make Marcus feel inferior. And now I realize Marcus felt inferior because he was inferior. He knew from 16 that he wasn't mine, and instead of becoming better to earn his place, he became worse. He stole, he lied, he destroyed you out of spite. While you, thinking you weren't good enough, worked twice as hard to prove yourself. He pulled out another item, my law school acceptance letter. Not Northwestern, where I'd gone, but Yale, where I'd been accepted but couldn't afford. I found this in Linda's things, he said. She hid it from me. You got into Yale Law School, and she hid it because Marcus had just been rejected from Harvard Business School for the second time. If I'd known, you'd have paid for it? I'd have sold the house to pay for it. Yale Law, Stephen. Do you understand what that means? You're brilliant, and I let them convince me you were just average. I did fine at Northwestern. You did exceptional at Northwestern. Imagine what you could have done at Yale. I might have become a corporate lawyer who never discovered the truth, I said. Maybe Northwestern was exactly where I needed to be. We spent hours going through the box. Every achievement I thought they'd ignored, Robert had secretly saved. Report cards with straight A's, science fair ribbons, debate team trophies, letters from teachers praising my potential. Why didn't you ever say anything? I asked. Linda said it would go to your head, that you needed to stay humble, that Marcus needed the encouragement more because he struggled. I was weak. I let her manage the emotional side of parenting while I just provided. You did more than provide. I did less than father. There's a difference. From that day forward, Robert became the father he should have been. We went to baseball games, something we'd never done when I was young because Marcus didn't like sports. We took cooking classes together at my grandfather's culinary school. We even went to therapy together, working through 36 years of dysfunction. The therapist says I have emotional codependency issues, Robert told me after one session. Apparently, I let Linda make all the emotional decisions because I was afraid of confrontation. She chose Marcus as the golden child, so I went along with it. She chose to exclude you, so I went along with it. I never once asked myself what I wanted. What do you want now? A relationship with my son, my real son, the one who chose to be my son even after learning we share no blood. You have that. Do I? After everything. Dad, I said, using the title deliberately. You stayed. When everyone else ran, Marcus, Linda, Thomas, all the relatives, you stayed. You faced the truth, accepted it, and chose to rebuild. That's more than DNA. That's decision. You know what the irony is? He said one evening. I always wanted a son who was smart, honest, hardworking. I had one all along. I just ignored him for the flashy thief who wasn't even mine. Marcus was who you wanted him to be. No, Marcus was who Linda told me he was. You were who you actually were. I should have seen it. The investigator found donor 447B in March. He was a doctor, unsurprisingly. Croatian immigrant who donated sperm to pay for medical school. He had 4 other donor children, all successful professionals. We met for coffee. It was awkward but interesting. He looked nothing like me or Marcus, but we had his hands. Surgeon's hands, precise and steady. I always wondered, he said. Thank you for finding me. His name was Dr. Alexander Kovac, and he was chief of neurosurgery at Mount Sinai. 61 years old, married, 3 biological children who knew nothing about his donor past. I donated 43 times, he said quietly. I was 23, desperate for money, brilliant but poor. They paid $500 per donation. That was rent, food, textbooks. It saved my life, but I always wondered about the lives I created. We met monthly after that. He was fascinated by how different Marcus and I had turned out. Same genetic material, same mother, same household, completely different outcomes, he mused. Nature versus nurture in its purest form. You became successful through work. Marcus became successful through theft. You were rejected but grew stronger. He was celebrated but grew weaker. The other donor siblings were equally fascinating. Dr. Sarah Chan, no relation to my grandfather. A cardiac surgeon in Boston. Michael Reeves, a teacher in Vermont. Jennifer Santos, an artist in Miami. And David Kim, serving 25 to life for armed robbery in California. We're a statistical sample of human potential, Sarah said at our first group meeting. Same biological father, different mothers, different circumstances, wildly different outcomes. 5 kids, 4 successful, 1 imprisoned. Michael noted. That's actually better than most families. 6 kids, I corrected. Marcus is in prison too. So 3 successes, 2 failures, Jennifer laughed. Still better than the Kardashians. We met quarterly, this strange assembled family. Dr. Kovac attended when he could, fascinated by his genetic legacy. He paid for David's legal appeal, funded Jennifer's art show, advised Sarah on surgical techniques. He became, oddly, more of a father figure than anyone except Robert. Meanwhile, Marcus was not adjusting well to prison. I knew because Jennifer, his ex-wife, kept me informed. He calls collect every day, she said over coffee. Cries about how unfair it is. Says you set him up, that you planned everything to steal his life. His life. He believes the Chun fortune was rightfully his. That as the younger brother, the baby, he should have inherited everything. The fact that it was never Morrison money, that it was always Chun money you were entitled to, he can't process that. She showed me a letter he'd written to the twins. My dear boys, your Uncle Stephen has stolen everything from us. He was always jealous of our family, of how much Grandma and Grandpa loved me more. Now he's poisoned everyone against me with lies. Don't believe what you hear. Daddy is innocent. Daddy will come home soon and fix everything. I'm not letting them read this, Jennifer said. They don't need his poison in their heads. How are they handling it? Better than expected. They know their father did something bad with money. They know he hurt you. They're in therapy working through it. They ask about you, actually. You were the only adult in that family who ever really talked to them. Not at them. I started taking the twins out monthly, museums, baseball games, normal uncle activities. They needed stability, normalcy, someone to show them that Morrison men could be more than criminals or enablers. Uncle Stephen, the quieter twin James, asked one day, "Why did Dad hate you so much?" "He didn't hate me," I said carefully. "He hated that I existed. There's a difference." My existence reminded him that he wasn't who he pretended to be. Because you weren't really brothers? Because we were really brothers, but he wanted to be an only child. He wanted all the love, all the money, all the attention. My existing meant he had to share, and he'd rather destroy me than share. That's sick, his brother Thomas said. Yes, I agreed. It is. And that sickness is why he's in prison. But you two aren't him. You get to choose who you become. Marcus's trial was a media circus. Golden Boys Fall, a riches to prison story ran headlines. He tried to claim mental illness, that the pressure of being the perfect son had driven him to crime. The prosecutor demolished that defense with my testimony. Mr. Morrison, the prosecutor asked me on the stand, did the defendant know he was not Robert Morrison's biological son? Yes. He'd known since he was 16. And did this knowledge affect his behavior toward you? It made him crueler. He knew I thought we were both Robert's sons. He used that knowledge as a weapon, constantly hinting at something I didn't know, enjoying the power of the secret. Can you give an example? Christmas dinner 5 years ago. He gave a toast to real family, the kind that shares blood, not just names. Everyone thought it was sweet. He looked right at me when he said it, smirking. He knew I didn't understand, and he enjoyed my confusion. The jury took 3 hours to convict on all counts. 20 years federal time. The judge, a stern woman who'd seen too many privileged criminals, was harsh in her sentencing. Mr. Morrison, you had everything: wealth, education, opportunity, love. You threw it all away out of greed and spite. You destroyed your brother's life because you could. You stole from your father because you felt entitled. You show no remorse, only anger at being caught. 20 years is lenient. If I could give you more, I would. I bought a house with the Chin money. Not a mansion, just a nice colonial in Westchester, close to Robert and Grandma. I restarted my financial advisory firm, this time with better partners and security systems. Within 6 months, I had my old clients back. They'd never believed the embezzlement story anyway. Marcus pled guilty in June to avoid trial. 20 years in federal prison, possibility of parole in 12. At his sentencing, he looked at me across the courtroom. "I'm sorry," he mouthed. I nodded. Not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. Linda pled guilty too. 10 years out in 6 with good behavior. She lost everything, the house, the cars, the jewelry, the reputation. The woman who'd called me a homeless nobody was now actually homeless. Nobody wanting anything to do with her. Thomas was eventually found in Canada. Extradited, tried, convicted. 15 years for fraud and conspiracy. The Chin family curse, Grandma called it. They wanted the Chin money so bad. Now they'll have years in prison to think about it. On the anniversary of that Christmas dinner, I hosted my own. Robert, Grandma, some cousins who'd apologized for their part in the mockery, and surprisingly, Jennifer and the twins. She'd divorced Marcus immediately and needed support. "You were always the better brother," she told me. "I just couldn't see it past the success. Marcus was successful at pretending. I failed at pretending. That's the only difference." The twins, now 9, didn't understand everything, but they knew Uncle Stephen wasn't homeless anymore, and their dad had done bad things. Kids are resilient. They'd be okay. "You know what I learned?" I said, giving a toast at dinner. "Being called a homeless nobody was the best thing that ever happened to me. It freed me to stop pretending I belonged to people who never wanted me. It forced me to find out who I really was." "Who are you?" Grandma asked, smiling like she already knew the answer. "I'm Stephen Chin, grandson of a restaurant empire builder, son of a donor and a desperate woman, raised by a good man who wasn't my father but became my dad, brother to a thief who destroyed himself with jealousy, and definitely not nobody." We toasted to truth, to consequences, to starting over, to families of choice rather than blood, to the homeless who weren't really homeless and the golden children who were really brass. 2 years have passed since that Christmas. Marcus is in federal prison, teaching financial literacy to other inmates, ironic but maybe redemptive. Linda works in a nursing home kitchen, the kind of place she used to mock. Thomas died of a heart attack in prison, the stress apparently. I run the Chun restaurant empire now, along with my financial firm. We donate 10% of profits to homeless shelters and foster care organizations. Kids who are treated like outsiders in their own families, people who've lost everything through no fault of their own. Robert officially adopted me last year. At 69, he adopted his 38-year-old son. The judge thought we were crazy until we explained the situation. "So you're adopting the man you raised but isn't yours, who exposed the son you thought was yours but wasn't?" "I'm adopting my real son," Robert said simply. "Biology be damned." The adoption certificate hangs in my office next to a photo from that Christmas dinner, the one someone took right after Marcus called me a homeless nobody. In it, I'm smiling slightly, checking my watch, knowing that in 30 minutes, everything would change. Clients sometimes ask about it. I tell them the story, the whole story, about the golden child who was brass, the homeless nobody who was secretly wealthy, the father who wasn't but became, the mother who was but shouldn't have been. "That's insane," they usually say. "That's family," I reply. Grandma is 95 now, still sharp, still the keeper of secrets. She told me recently that she has one more. "What now?" I asked. "Am I actually an alien?" "No," she laughed. "But Linda isn't done paying for what she did. I've been in contact with your grandfather Chen's lawyers for 40 years. She owes you more than money." "What do you mean?" "Interest, penalties, and damages. By the time the forensic accountants are done, she'll owe you everything she's ever earned, plus what she'll earn for the rest of her life. You own her, Stephen. Literally." "I don't want that." "Then forgive the debt when she gets out. But make her ask. Make her beg the homeless nobody for forgiveness." "That's cruel, Grandma." "No, that's justice. There's a difference. Linda gets out in 3 years. Marcus in 10. Thomas is gone. The family that gathered that Christmas to humiliate me has scattered, destroyed by their own lies and cruelty. But I have a new family. Robert, my chosen father. Grandma, my truth-telling matriarch. Jennifer and the twins, refugees from Marcus's destruction. The staff at the restaurants who've become friends. The donors at the shelters who understand what it means to have nothing and everything at the same time. Sometimes I drive past the homeless shelter Marcus mentioned that Christmas. I park my new Tesla, bought with my own earned money, not inherited, and serve dinner. I tell them my story about being called homeless while secretly owning millions. "You give us hope," one man told me, "that things aren't always what they seem, that the people mocking us might be the ones worth pitying." He's right. Marcus, sitting in federal prison, is more homeless than I ever was. Linda, counting days until released to nothing, is more nobody than she ever accused me of being. They had homes but were never at home. They had family but were never familiar. They had everything and ended with nothing. I had nothing and discovered everything. The investigator still works for me, tracking down the other donor siblings. We meet quarterly, a strange family of half-strangers connected by donor 447B and curiosity. One's a surgeon like our biological father. One's a teacher. One's an artist. One's in prison. Genetics don't determine everything, apparently. "We're all successful in different ways," the teacher said. "Even the prisoner. He successfully robbed 17 banks before getting caught." We laughed. Dark humor, but humor nonetheless. We understood each other, children of intention rather than love, raised by strangers, finding each other in middle age. "You know what's funny?" the surgeon said. "We're more family than most families. We chose to find each other." He's right. Choice is what makes family. Robert chose to stay my father after learning I wasn't his. I chose to forgive him for favoring Marcus. Grandma chose to reveal the truth when it mattered most. We chose each other. Marcus and Linda chose greed and got justice. Thomas chose deception and got death. The relatives who laughed at my humiliation chose cruelty and got shame. Every choice has a consequence, and that Christmas all consequences came due. People still watch the video of that dinner sometimes. It has millions of views now. "Greatest Christmas revenge ever," they title it on social media. They missed the point. It wasn't revenge. It was revelation. I didn't destroy them. I revealed them. There's a difference. The homeless nobody is homeless no more. Nobody no more. But I keep the title as a reminder. Homeless, without the false home of toxic family. Nobody, not the somebody they wanted me to be. Free to be exactly who I am. Stephen Chin Morrison. Adopted son of Robert Morrison. Grandson of Chin Fortune. Survivor of family fraud. Server at homeless shelters. Keeper of truth. Breaker of lies. That Christmas when Marcus stood up with his wine glass to humiliate me, he thought he was ending my story. Instead, he was beginning it. Every insult was a key unlocking my cage. Every laugh from relatives was a chain breaking. Every word of mockery was a step toward freedom. "You're nothing but a homeless nobody," he'd said. Yes. And that nothing became everything. That homeless found home. That nobody became somebody, not the somebody they wanted, but the somebody I was always meant to be. The investigator had walked in exactly 30 minutes after Marcus's toast, just as I'd planned. But I hadn't planned what he'd reveal. I thought he'd just expose Marcus's embezzlement. Instead, he exposed 40 years of lies, affairs, theft, and genetic deception. He revealed that the golden child was painted brass, that the failure was actually fortune, that the family was actually fraud. Now, every Christmas, I host dinner for anyone who needs family. Former foster kids, disowned LGBT youth, homeless veterans, abandoned elderly. We gather in the main dining room of Chen's Palace, eating $40,000 worth of food I donate. No one gets humiliated. No one gets mocked. Everyone belongs. The first year, 50 people came, hesitant, suspicious of charity from someone they'd seen on the viral video being called homeless himself. The second year, 300. This year, we had to open all 3 floors of the restaurant. 800 people who had nowhere else to go on Christmas. I tell my story every year, standing where my grandfather once stood, addressing a room full of people society has discarded. 3 years ago, I begin. My brother stood up at Christmas dinner and called me a homeless nobody in front of 70 relatives. They laughed. They applauded. They agreed I was worthless, that I didn't deserve to eat at their table. The room is always silent at this point. They know this pain. What they didn't know was that I owned the table. I owned the house. I owned everything they thought made them better than me. A grandfather I'd never met had left me $40 million that my mother had been stealing. But for 1 year I really was homeless. I lived in my car. I sold everything I owned. I knew what it was like to count change for bread, to shower at the gym, to pretend everything was fine when everything was falling apart. Nods around the room. These people know. My homelessness was temporary. My nobody status was a lie. But for many of you, it's daily reality. Not because you're worth less, but because the world values the wrong things. It values blood over choice, money over character, appearances over truth. So tonight, in the restaurant my grandfather built, at the table he kept set for me for 36 years, we feast. Not as homeless nobodies, but as humans who deserve dignity, respect, and belonging. Last Christmas, 300 people came. One was a young man, maybe 25, who'd been kicked out by his parents for failing medical school. They called me the family disappointment, he said. What are you doing now? I asked. Teaching kindergarten. I love it, but they say it's beneath our family. Let me tell you about being called a homeless nobody, I said, and told him the whole story. By the end, he was crying. So it gets better? No, I said. You get better. You get stronger. You find your real family. And one day, the people who mocked you realized they mocked gold while treasuring tin. He came back this year, bringing 3 other teachers who'd been disowned for choosing education over more prestigious careers. They sat at table 1, the table my grandfather had reserved for me, the table that now belongs to anyone who needs it. The shelter Marcus had mockingly mentioned, Haven House, became our primary charity. I donated $2 million the first year, enough to expand from 50 beds to 200. But more than money, I gave time. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I served dinner. Not as the millionaire benefactor, but as Steven, the guy who ladles soup and listens to stories. You don't act rich. One regular, Vietnam vet named Tom, told me. I'm not rich, I said. I have money. There's a difference. Rich is thinking you're better than others. Money is just a tool to help others. Your family really called you homeless? While I was paying for their Christmas dinner. Ironic, right? Cruel is what it is. My family disowned me when I came back from Nam with PTSD. Said I was embarrassing. Haven't seen them in 40 years. Do you miss them? I miss who I thought they were, not who they actually were. That's the thing about chosen homelessness versus circumstantial homelessness. I chose to be homeless rather than beg my family for help. Tom and the others often had no choice, but we all ended up in the same place, outside looking in at families that didn't want us. Linda got out of prison last month, 2 years early for good behavior. She showed up at Chen's palace on a Tuesday, when she knew I'd be there. She looked older, grayer, smaller. Prison had taken the arrogance out of her posture, the cruelty out of her smile. Stephen, she said quietly. I was ladling soup for the dinner rush. I didn't stop. Linda, I'm here about the job. Dishwasher. Minimum wage. Tuesday through Saturday, noon to close. You report to Mr. Liu. He knows who you are and what you did. Everyone does. I need this job. It's a condition of my parole. Then you'd better be a good dishwasher.